Welcome to this week's edition of Taiwan Outlook. I'm your host, Chi-Chen Lo. For the past few years, there have been ups and downs in the U.S. relationship with Taiwan. And recently, there have been controversies or misunderstandings about Taiwan's referendum on our UN bid. So what can we do to improve our relations with the U.S.? And that's the topic we are going to talk about today. In today's program, we are very delighted to invite Dr. Gerrit van der Wees. He is a senior political advisor to the Formosa Association for Public Affairs. And that is FAPA. It's a very active and very important lobby group in Washington, D.C. Gerrit, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much. Very pleased to be here. Thank you for your hospitality. It's great to be back in Taiwan and to be part of what you are doing here.
Good to have you back in Taiwan. Tell us more about FAPA, because for some viewers, they don't know much about your organization.
FAPA is a Taiwanese-American grassroots organization.
Mm-hmm.
We were established in 1982 when Taiwan was still under martial law, and at that time a number of prominent figures like Professor Pang Min, Tsai Tung-rong, and Mark Chen Tan-san, they took the initiative to set up FAPA to work in support of Taiwan in the American Congress. And we were able to get the American Congress to be very supportive of the end of martial law, of allowing opposition parties to function, of freedom and democracy in general in Taiwan.
So what's the mission now for FAPA?
FAPA, since Taiwan became democratic in the early 1990s, FAPA has focused on Taiwan's position in the international community, Taiwan's membership in international organizations. And we have worked together with people in Congress introducing resolutions in support of Taiwan's membership in the United Nations, in support of Taiwan's membership in the World Health Organization, and other international organizations. So that has been the main focus of FAPA over the past 15 years.
And what are activities that you've been conducting over the years?
We try to represent the Taiwanese American community and look at things from their perspective. They have, of course, been very active and instrumental in getting Taiwan to be democratic, together with the Taiwanese here in this country. And with our Taiwanese American community, we are a very effective voice for Taiwan in the United States, because the Taiwanese Americans live in the United States and they vote in the United States. So it's for us much easier to go to a congressman or senator and say, hey, your supporters, your constituents in New Jersey or in California or in New York, they take this or that position vis-a-vis Taiwan, so therefore we ask you to support it. And then it's much easier for such a congressman or a senator to express support of Taiwan, because it comes from their grassroots.
FAPA is based in Washington, D.C. Do you have branches or chapters in different states in the States?
Yes, we do have 56 chapters all over the United States. Almost every state, few exceptions, do have FAPA chapters. And in a number of bigger states, like California, like New York, we have 4 or 5 chapters in different cities. And that really is the power of FAPA, that we do have those local chapters where people can get organized, write their congressman or senator, and let their voice be heard in support of Taiwan. That is really what the strength of FAPA is in Washington, D.C., this grassroots network.
Do you have this kind of membership system, or how many members do you have now? Yeah,
we do have paying members. Those are the people all over the United States who become members of FAPA, and we have in total a little bit over 3,000 members at the present time. And those are basically the people who consistently work hard for Taiwan at the local level. They organize meetings and so on. They get in contact with the congressmen, senators, the mayors, and so on.
Looking back, what are the most important achievements that you're most proud of, over the years?
In the very early days, FAPA was very instrumental in getting the American Congress to speak out for the end of martial law in Taiwan. And that really put a lot of pressure on the Kuomintang authorities back in those days to move towards the end of martial law.
Yeah.
They also spoke out in favor of a multi-party political system, and that helped establish the DPP in 1986. At that time, I can mention we had 4 people in Congress who were very outspoken senators, Ted Kennedy and Claiborne Pell on the Senate side, and then Congressman Leach and Solarz on the House side. So we called them the Gang of 4. And they were very instrumental and helpful in getting the early achievements of FAPA through Congress.
But in order to make it more progressive, you need to recruit more new blood into the FAPA.
Yeah.
Are you recruiting a lot of new young Taiwanese Americans to your organization?
Yes, indeed. We have a special effort called the Young Professionals Group, and it is coordinated by one of my colleagues, Iris Ho, who is married to my other colleague, Kun Blau.
Yeah.
And Kun and Iris are just arrived in Taiwan this weekend, and they will also go to different universities to speak in favor of Taiwan. And Iris is coordinating this group of, I think it's 300-400 young professionals, people of the age of 23, 25, 26, 28, and get them to be active in their community, get them to be involved in the movement overseas in support of Taiwan on a variety of issues.
But apparently you're also facing competitions from, in particular, China, in lobbying U.S. Congress and the politicians and try to sway their support from Taiwan to Beijing and so on. How do you counter these kind of challenges from China?
Yeah, over the past years, China has become more influential in Washington simply because of its increasing economic importance. China's economic rise has added more weight to its voice in Washington, but they also have become more cunning or more sophisticated, whichever one way you look at it, in voicing their position in Washington. They have been actually quite successful, I must say, in that. They have also used companies to speak out in favor of them.
That's right.
Boeing is one major example where they, anytime that there's any issue relating to Taiwan or China, Boeing calls their congressman or senator and say, Boeing is in favor of this or that, but it's really China that's behind the scenes. So that really has made us realize we have to work harder and become more effective and efficient. But I think on the basics of it, we still have a very strong position in Washington because our product is a very good product, namely a democracy. China is still very undemocratic, it is very repressive, and that works against them. So we are, in a sense, still in an advantageous position, but we have to work hard to maintain that advantageous position.
But the problem is that in terms of, for instance, media coverage, apparently China will get more attention and more coverage than Taiwan does. So you don't see a balanced coverage about the two sides of Taiwan Strait. Is that a difficulty you are facing right now?
No, in Washington, I think we have to say that there is quite a bit of interest and coverage of Taiwan. Particularly in the think tanks. There are quite a number of think tanks, and you would be amazed to see how many events are there every month relating to Taiwan. I think the number of events relating to Taiwan is just about the same as China. And Taiwan is relatively small, and China is, of course, very big. So we do have, I think, good coverage overall of Taiwan in Washington. But it's, of course, the international media that focuses on China, with their reporters in Beijing. There are very few international media that do have permanent reporters here in Taipei. I think that's one point that one needs to look at here in Taipei also.
But as far as I know, there are more and more congressmen or senators going to China, you know, and fewer senators come to Taiwan to have a first-hand experience of Taiwan. Was that a disadvantage for Taiwan in the long run in terms of lobbying?
Well, of course, there are numbers of senators going to China, but the visit itself really sometimes works counterproductive. They do see, to quite an extent, how China doesn't function very well, how bad the environment is. They see the social stratification, rich versus poor. And many of the senators and congressmen who go to China are more concerned about China's problems than that they are supportive of China. I think we have to make a distinction there.
You talk about the basics and also the product itself, and apparently Taiwan is much better in terms of quality vis-a-vis China. What is Taiwan's image in the States now?
Well, the problem has been over the past few years that there has been on the one hand, lack of communication between the United States and Taiwan, and this really needs to be improved. And I think on both sides they do realize that this communication needs to be improved. Another problem over the past years has been the major preoccupation by the American administration, the Bush administration, with Iraq. I mean, every day they are very much preoccupied with what's happening in Iraq. Congress talks about Iraq.
That's right.
And therefore, Taiwan has become very much of a side issue. And any time that Taiwan wants to do something or does something, you know, the American government says, "Hey, be quiet." And that, in a sense, does not help Taiwan's position in Washington, D.C.
As you rightly put, that as a result of a lack of communication between the two governments or two sides between U.S. and Taiwan, there have been some misunderstandings between the two countries. So when we come back, we'll talk about how can we fix the problem and what would be other alternative channels for better communication, including society, the sort of check to think tank channels. And don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages.